Now that we have all of our reference geometry in place, we can begin creating all of the walls of the project over the course of the next couple of lessons. So let's start by adding the exterior walls. I'll switch to the first floor plan view in the project browser. You can see the planes we just created in the workspace. Next, I'll launch the Wall tool from the Home tab on the ribbon. And when I do, I'm again automatically switched to a Modify and Place Wall tab. Also, notice underneath the ribbon, I have a few more options, which we'll go over in just a bit. And you can see the Properties dialog also has changed to show the wall properties. When you're working with Revit, you'll find that you keep going back and forth between the Properties window and the workspace, constantly adjusting the properties and parameters as the project develops and grows in complexity. So, to add a wall, all you need to do is grab one of the draw tools. I'll select the Rectangle tool, for example, and sketch the wall in the graphics area. I'll go ahead and sketch out an open space for now. When you're done sketching, just press the Escape key to exit out of the Rectangle tool and again to complete the wall. Alright, let's take a look at what we just created by switching to a 3D view. The default template doesn't have any 3D views created, so we'll create one manually right now. I'll switch to the View tab on the ribbon and click the 3D view icon on the Create panel. When I do, Revit automatically creates a default 3D view, and you can see the walls I just created, and there's now a 3D views category in the project browser. If I switch to an elevation view, you can see the walls there too. The walls that I just created are off in space to the side of the planes. As you can see, they extend from the first floor of the building almost all the way to the roof. Now, this is due to the properties we skipped over. I'll switch back to the first floor plan and delete these walls. I can use the Tab key on the keyboard to highlight them all at once and pressing the Delete key on my keyboard. Bingo. Now let's create the actual exterior walls, and in the process, we'll look at exactly what we're doing a little more carefully. So I'll again launch the Wall tool from the Home tab of the ribbon. Before I go selecting or sketching anything, let's take a look at the Wall Properties dialog. The first item here is a drop-down menu known as the Type Selection menu. Right now, it's set to a generic 8-inch basic wall, but when I click the drop-down arrow, you can see there are many more default wall types available. Notice some of the walls are basic walls with just one layer, and some of the walls are more complex layered walls with different materials for the wall core and the finished faces. Alright, so for this wall type, let's use generic 12-inch. We'll use this default wall type to create the walls here, and I'll show you how we can create and use custom wall types later on in the course by using the Edit Type button. We'll be using this frequently throughout the course. Underneath the Type Selection dropdown is another dropdown which right now says New Walls. Basically, this dropdown determines what properties are displayed below. If I change it to Floor Plan, the properties below change to show the view properties for the floor plan view we're in. I'll leave it at New Walls so it shows the properties for the walls we're about to create. Now, there are 5 major properties you'll use when creating walls. The first is the location line. When you sketch a line to create a wall, the line you sketched could be either the center line for the entire wall, the center line for the wall core, it could represent the exterior or interior boundary of the finished faces, or the exterior or interior of the core faces. Some wall types are compound walls with multiple layers, and the location line can have a big effect on how the walls are positioned relative to the lines you sketch. This will make a lot more sense later in the course when we start working with different wall types, but for now, all you need to know is that a location line determines how the wall is located relative to the lines you sketch. Now, since we use the reference planes to outline our building, I want the location line to be the finished face exterior. That way, the lines I sketch will represent the absolute outermost boundary of the building. The base constraint is where the wall will begin. You must choose a level from the drop-down. I want the wall to start at the first floor level, but Revit would allow me to create walls on any level, okay? You can also specify an offset distance for the base. This could be either a positive or negative value. Just for an example, I'll make the offset -6 inches, so the wall will actually start 6 inches below the first floor level we've created. I could just as easily have had the wall start above the first floor level as well. Next, I'll set the height of the wall using these top constraint parameters. I can make this an unconnected wall and set the height of the wall by entering a value, or I can have the wall extend up to a particular level. I want the walls to all extend up to the lower roof. I can also specify an offset distance for the top of the wall, but in this case, I'll leave the top offset at 0. These same properties can also be found on this bar under the ribbon called Options Bar. Okay? Notice here there's also a chain checkbox. If I leave the checkbox enabled, Revit will assume I'm trying to create multiple walls at once, as Revit will automatically create a chain of lines as I sketch, which can come in handy. That takes care of all the wall properties, so let's sketch our outline. With the line tool, I'll sketch the outline of the building, snapping to the intersections of the reference planes as I go. Notice how the wall is being drawn inward from the line. This is because of the location line we chose. If we chose Finish Face Interior, the walls would be created toward the outside instead. And if we chose one of the centerline options, the walls would extend over both sides of the reference planes. So I'll hit Escape twice to finish the walls and exit the tool and switch to a 3D view. And you can see the exterior walls in the view. In the bottom of the graphics area, I'll switch the display to Shaded with Edges to get a little nicer visual. Also, if I switch to an elevation view, you can see that the walls start 6 inches below the first level and extend up to the lower roof. Before I continue, let's get rid of the bottom offset so our walls start exactly at the first floor level, okay? I'll switch to the first floor plan view. Next, I'll hover my cursor over one of the walls. Now, without clicking, I can press the Tab key on the keyboard to cycle through possible selections. I'll press Tab until the entire chain of walls is highlighted, and then click to select all of the walls here. Now I can change the bottom offset back to 0 and click Apply to finish the walls.